Welcome to the Creative Force Podcast, a podcast all about empowering you to live in your God-given identity and go after the dreams in your heart. I'm your host, Sharon Stark, and every week we'll be having powerful conversations that will combine practical and biblical wisdom for living your purpose. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Creative Force Podcast. I'm here today with Edna Martinson. Edna is a tech entrepreneur, and she is the co-founder of Boddle Learning, an educational app. She is also listed in the Forbes Next 1000 and Forbes 30 Under 30. Welcome, Edna. Can you share with the audience a little bit more about yourself?
Yes, and thank you so much for having me, Sharon. I'm super excited to be on the podcast. Hi, everyone. My name is Edna Martinson. I'm co-founder of Boddle Learning. We're a gaming platform for education that's helping elementary school students tackle learning gaps in math and English through fun and interactive games. Originally from Ghana, West Africa, moved to the US 13-ish years ago now. And went to Park University. That's where Sharon and I met.
Yes.
And then did my MBA at University of Missouri, Kansas City.
Awesome. That's so cool. Can you start us off by just sharing, how did you get the idea for Boddle? And then, what were the action steps that you started to take?
Yeah. So my journey, I've always been really passionate about the education space. When I first came to the US, I was 16 years old. And growing up, I had a lot of, tutors who would come home after school to help me out with math. I really struggled with math. So to help me out with math, and that extra assistance really helped me thrive. And those opportunities that education opened up for me, allowed me to come to this country, to pursue my undergrad and my grad. So really passionate about giving the next generation access to high quality learning resources. And in 2016, I met my husband, Clarence, and he was really interested in education as well, but he had such a strong gaming background. So he built and designed video games. And we kind of fell in love with that intersection of games and education and how games can really be used to inspire kids to love learning. At the time, we lived in Kansas City, and at our church in Kansas City, we had several friends who were teachers, elementary school teachers, more specifically. And they would talk about how, they've got a classroom of 20 plus kids, and the kids are all on different learning levels. And it's really hard to, make sure that by the end of that school year, all the kids are on grade level and ready for that next grade. And how do you give that personalized attention? And so we just thought, hey, what if we started to introduce, some gamified concepts in the classroom? So I remember Clarence had mocked up a really basic, here's what a math game could look like. And we had one of our teacher friends allow us to come in the classroom and show the kids, and their eyes just started to light up this is so fun. So just seeing that, we were like, oh, there's really something here. And that was the genesis of starting Boddle.
That's really cool. And I love that you guys are tackling math. I really struggled with math as a kid too. So I would have loved to have had something like this. Can you describe to the audience the little characters and what they mean?
Yeah. So the company is called Boddle after these bottle-headed characters. It's Boddle. We couldn't get the website name for Bottle, so we're gonna have to go. And so actually, maybe you can see it on my screen. These bottle-headed characters we fell in love with when we were first starting the company, and we thought, we're building a video game for kids. We want to have really unique game characters. And a friend of ours had kind of sketched this out and was like, what do you guys think about this? Because at first we're thinking animal characters, but after we saw this, we fell in love, mainly because of the meaning. So in the game, as kids are learning, their heads are filling up, sending that message to fill up on learning. And then in the game, they can do really cool stuff with the knowledge points that they collect, like plant trees and, defeat baddies. So it sends that message fill up on learning and then pour back out to help others. And that's the meaning behind the characters and the reason we named the company after them as well.
I love it. I think that's such a great meaning. And what year did you guys start? You guys started in, was it 2019, right before COVID?
We started officially 2018 was when we officially started development. But the first 2 years, we call it our mom's basement phase, because it was just trying to We had like no money, trying to do like pitch competitions to raise the money to be able to start actual development and testing. And then 2020 was when we had the first like MVP go out to market, be like, okay, let's actually put this out in classrooms.
That's cool. And during that mom's basement phase, um, like what were some of like you mentioned that you did some pitches, so you guys were trying to get funding. Can you kind of walk us through like that process and like what that looked like?
Yeah. So at the time, the biggest thing about that phase was really selling the vision.
Mm-hmm.
We knew like this could be awesome, this could be great, but we needed other people to believe it without having a product. So
Yeah.
it was a lot of just like painting that picture of imagine if kids had a tool like this in the classroom or at home that they could learn with. Um, and I think that was probably the hardest part from the stage for me because you don't want to be like an imposter, like selling something that isn't like real yet, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, um you need to sell it and you need to sell the vision for people to actually believe. And so we got rejected from a lot of the pitch competitions that we had signed up for and got a lot of no's. And I think a lot of the no's came because we were so hesitant to like fully sell the vision, because I had this sort
Okay.
of like imposter. I haven't built anything yet. Like, I think this is kind of what I use that sort of language. And until I
Yeah.
change my mindset, I need to be confident on like, we're building a gaming platform for education. It's going to help kids in XYZ way. That's when I think we started to see things turn around and started to win a couple of the competitions.
That's really interesting. It was just like the language that you're using that you had to like make it like this is happening, not like we hope to like maybe make this happen. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
exactly.
And like during that time, like you said, like you kind of like, oh, like dealing with imposter. Like, so how did you overcome like maybe like those feelings of like imposter syndrome?
Ooh. One of the biggest things was like having conversations with other founders who were at not like at our stage at a higher stage than us, but not too far off, because they kind of understood exactly where we were at and gave such encouraging words on like, hey, you guys like have a big vision, just keep going. And I think that encouragement really helped me, even speaking to people who had won some of these competitions just the year before and seeing what their
Yeah.
journey was like, oh, it is actually quite similar, like they didn't have a product like when they were first starting off and first won this competition, but the competition dollars helped them, develop their product. And so once I just started having those conversations, it really did help. And then faith for us is like a really big thing too. So there was
Yeah.
lots of prayer and just like listening to worship music and being like, Lord, like direct us in the steps that we should be going. So that played a big part as well.
Yeah, can you talk more about that and just like how your relationship with God has like impacted your like entrepreneurship journey?
Yes. So it's definitely like the most pivotal part of life in general, but I think like as an entrepreneur, it has like my relationship with the Lord has definitely gone a lot closer because there's so many moments where we have entrepreneurship is like this ups and downs, ups and downs. And there's so many moments like this is it, we're crashing and burning, and then it's like something happens, not out of my striving even. It's just like wow, like I guess you could call it luck, but me, I feel like it's like the grace of God that like, oh, something came through, for us. And then it's like
Praise
now we
God.
have the funding to keep going, or we found somebody who's interested in helping us and volunteering their time. So there've been so many of those moments that I just know like, okay, Lord, like this is a blessing from God. And it's really helped. But it's definitely been a journey, especially when you're like in those moments, those challenging moments where you're trying to figure out like what do we do? Things just don't seem to be going right. Um, and sometimes like the last resort is prayer. You're like, okay, I need to like think strategically and like build out a plan and like what are we gonna do? And then you don't think to pray first. So I've been trying to change my mindset on that too, on like I'm just gonna go to God first and pray and then go out and do all the other things I need to do to hopefully make things work.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome. It's like partnering with God to like get stuff done. That's really cool. And you guys
Yeah.
saw like a huge growth during 2020. Can you talk about that and just like how things started to take off?
Yeah. So we launched the platform January 2020. I remember around like March, Clarence was like, "Hey, we should put a live chat on our website." And I was like, "Why? Nobody's coming to the website or like stuff." And he's like, "We should just do it. There's like a Intercom is what we use. They had Intercom had like a 1 year free for startups." And he's like, "We should just join that program and like have the chatbot." And so I was like, "Fine." I think we did this like first week of March. And by like the second week of March, we started getting some messages and it would go to our phones. But it would be like 10 p.m. at night, 11 p.m. There's like an educator somewhere, not in the US, like somewhere in a different country, Luxembourg. I remember we got one
Oh,
where
that's
she was
cool.
like, "I'm trying to figure out like what I'm gonna do. Like we're going remote." And at that time, I mean, Kansas City schools were like we were still all in session. I remember we were just about to fly out to Austin for South by Southwest. And all of a sudden we're like, all these teachers, in other countries are going remote. What's happening? And then soon after it was like South by is canceled, like, and the Big 12, I remember they canceled it that day. And then our phones just started blowing up with messages from teachers in the
Oh,
US like, "Hey, our classrooms are going remote. We need help to figure out like tools that we're going to implement." And all of a sudden we went from we started off with a little over 1,000 students piloting the platform to 50,000 registered students on the platform.
wow.
And we were not expecting that at all. Um, but it was just that little effort of like putting the live chat on the website really helped us a lot because we were able to support teachers in real time when they were going through something, huge for them and their whole worlds were turning upside down. We were there like in the moment to be like, "Okay, let's help you out. What do you need?" And they taught us a lot as well of like what our platform didn't have that we needed to implement in order to actually serve them better.
That's really cool. And I think it's cool because it's like you talked earlier about like the grace of God. Like the fact that everything lined up that in that moment like you guys were ready to like meet the needs of like everybody during that time. Like that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's really cool. And I know like you have like a really busy schedule and all of that. So how do you keep your relationship with God intentional with like all this stuff going on and building this platform? What does that
Um,
look like?
for us, we do. Clarence calls it QT. He has it on his calendar, like QT. So it's like quiet time with the Lord.
Yeah.
And we like to do that separately too, because I think it is important, like as a married couple, to both like have those separate moments and like moments together, in
Mm.
prayer. And so in the mornings, like I'll wake up at 6 a.m. and have just like an hour to read my Bible and pray. And that gets harder when it's like, oh, I'm traveling and I'm in New York, and here and there. But I always try and like make that time. I'm trying to do it more in the mornings than at night too, because I don't know why. But I will, if I'm about to go to bed and I'm reading, I will just fall asleep.
Yeah,
I
similar.
do in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's been a big part. And then still trying to also, because a big part of this too is realizing that we can't make Bottle our whole lives, otherwise we'll
Mm.
just kind of get sucked into a vacuum. And so we still try, like Clarence still volunteers on the worship team at church whenever he has time, and we try and find those moments too to do things outside of work. And it only like, and especially when it's things that have to do with like serving God, I think it's beautiful, and it only energizes us more to go back into our jobs and be better.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I think like when you went, if you go back in time and you like look at everything that's like happened now, is this something that like you like imagined, or is it just like something that it's like things have just happened?
um Definitely, if I think of like 2018 when we first
Yeah.
started the company, is not what I did not think we would get this far or be this
Yeah.
wide reaching. But once like 2020 came about and I saw that big shift, it was like, okay, Edna, you need to dream bigger. And I think that's allowed me to kind of expand. Now, if you ask me, like, where do I think we'll be in like the next, you know, 5 years, I would say like we want to be that like household name for kids gaming and education. Back in 2018, if you asked me the same thing, I'd be like, I hope we're used in like a lot of schools in Kansas City.
Yeah.
So the vision has definitely been expanded as the years have gone by.
That's awesome. I love like that the vision has grown. Do you feel like that's just like because you've taken steps and you've gotten like closer that that's allowed your vision to grow? Or is it just like, yeah,
I think so. I think so. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
that's cool. I love that. And if you were to go back and like give yourself advice, like your younger self, like for your entrepreneurship journey, like what would that advice like look like?
If I was to give myself advice, I think it would be, especially my younger self, don't be afraid to be invited into certain rooms. I think in the beginning
Mm,
journey, I just felt like, you know, oh my gosh, like I'm getting asked to speak at this, or, there's this opportunity, but I don't know. Like, Clarence, you do it. Like, I just don't feel qualified. Um, and it took a while for me to get out of that mindset too. So I think I would just tell my younger self, like, don't feel that imposter syndrome, like you don't belong in those rooms. And what's helped a lot with that is just the more I have been in those rooms and having conversations with other people in those rooms, we're all in the same boat. Like, you know,
yeah.
every- like there's nobody in a room that like knows everything, and we're all learning. And the people that are in these rooms are people who are willing to step out there and be like, hey, I know this that I'm willing to share with a group, but there's so much more that I don't know that I'm here to learn as well. And so just learning from them too has helped to me to build my own confidence.
That's awesome. And I feel like you have like such a humility about you, and I think that's like a really great quality to have. Like what was it like when you found out about like making the Forbes list? Like how did you feel about that?
Oh, so I saw the email come through when we had to like rush to Kansas City one morning to go for like some family events, and I was like changing my baby's diaper, and he just like had had poop blasted everywhere. And I'm like trying to check my phone at the same time, and I'm like, oh, but like also there's all this poop I need to clean over here. So like it didn't sink in until we were like on the 4 hour drive, and I was like, wow, oh my gosh, like I made the list. Like this is awesome. So that's how I found out. But I think also like for me, my life and journey, God has really given me opportunities and things just at the right time. And I thank him for that, because like if I had gotten Forbes 30 under 30 in like 2018, my head would have been like this big, and I would have just thought I was like the coolest person in the world. But I feel like God has just like humbled me through the years to where like when that finally came through and last year it was like, hey, you're Forbes 30 under 30. I had For me, I was like, oh my gosh, like I get to represent our team. Like for me, it was always like Boddle is a company that's now under like the Forbes 30 under 30. I never even looked at it as like Edna Martinson. And I think it's only because God has really humbled me through the years to know that like every good thing is from him. And I've gone through several challenges that has brought me to this point. And so there was less of that like, big head syndrome.
That like I love that. I love that the story that's so relatable. You're like changing your baby's diaper and that's just great. That's amazing. What like last like kind of bit of advice would you really want to like give listeners who are listening?
um a big thing wherever you are in your entrepreneurial journey, the relationships that you make, sometimes, especially when we're starting out, we're always looking at like, I want to meet the person who's, like I want to meet the executives at Disney or whoever. Like you think you're always looking at the people who are ahead of you, but on
Mm-hmm.
the lateral level, like there are people at the same level as you that you're kind of, you know, all growing up with, and there's so much that you all can learn from each other. For me, like the accelerator programs that we've been a part of, where it's like we were with other founders all at the same stage, and now a lot of them have gone on to just do incredible things. Their companies are growing. It's been awesome to watch their journeys too. And other founder communities that we've been a part of, I think just having those peers at that same level, we've learned so much from each other and I think for me that's been the best part of the journey versus like always trying to look for like who's the person who's like way ahead of me doing awesome things who can help me grow. So I would encourage other people too to like look at like who else is kind of like at your stage, at your level, and how can you support each other and grow together.
That's great advice. That's awesome. And where can people find out more about Boddle and if they want to connect with you as well?
Yes. So Boddle, Boddle, boddle.com, that is the website. And the gaming platform, it's available on the web. If you using Chromebooks or laptops, there's an iPad or an iOS app for iPad and iPhones, and then an Android app for Android devices as well. And then you can connect with Boddle on Instagram at Boddle Learning. We always do fun like teacher giveaways and things like that. And then my Instagram is at Edna Sophie, Sophie.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Edna. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Do you have big dreams but no idea how to get there? Do you struggle with accomplishing the things that are most important to you? If you answered yes to those questions, I would like to offer you my free workbook called How to Get Unstuck, a free guide on how to get unstuck and live your dreams. This resource is full of tactics I use to help get me unstuck, and I believe that they will do the same for you. You can download this free guide on my blog at yourcreativeforce.com. The show notes for today's episode are available on my blog at yourcreativeforce.com, as well as other resources and inspiration to go after your dreams.